الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلوات وأتم التسليمات على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. We thank Allah and we send an abundance of salawat upon our beloved Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, upon his beautiful family and his noble companions. And we thank Allah for blessing us with this beautiful guest of ours, Sheikh Yousef Bakeer. MashaAllah, we've had him since yesterday. We had, MashaAllah, many programs, many talks, many dinners. May Allah bless him and his family, Ya Rab. And tonight, we have another beautiful program. We will be addressing the topic of Dhul Hijjah, but also there's been some requests from Sheikh Bakeer, from the community, for him to address a few things. So if everyone's okay, maybe by a show of hands, if everyone is okay with us going on a little bit of a tangent here and there, everyone's okay with that?
Yes.
Okay, well, I told you they're very nice community. They'll understand. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. So to begin, when we look at the life of Ibrahim alayhi salam, who is really the builder of the Kaaba, and he really is one whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala considers to be Khalilullah, right? Considers to be the close friend of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Quran documents his journey very beautifully. And in addition to this idea that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls Ibrahim alayhi salam an imam, that he is the imam of an-nas, right, of people, right, that this idea that what made Ibrahim alayhi salam, number one, a close friend of Allah, number two, a great knower of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the sense that Allah uses Ibrahim alayhi salam as the one who establishes great arguments against the enemies of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whether it was the king Nimrud, right? Whether it was the people, whether it was his uncle, right? No matter what the situation, Ibrahim alayhi salam is the one whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gifted the journey of thinking about who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, and then number two, how to express those truths to other people. And then number three, above that, we see the great sacrifices of Ibrahim alayhi salam. So we have like a full picture, whether it's his family life, whether it's his journey for truth and his argument for truth, whether it's his leadership. We have a full picture, and for that reason, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in Ibrahim you have uswatun hasana. So Ibrahim, Allah says, is the role model for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He said, in Ibrahim you have a beautiful example. The example that is to be followed. And Ibrahim alayhi salam, on top of all of this, right? When the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is told to tell his people who he follows, he says, we follow millata Ibrahim hanifa. So he calls Islam as a project in general as the path of Ibrahim alayhi salam. This is how critical, right? And on top of that, of course, we call Ibrahim alayhi salam, you gotta watch out. We call Ibrahim alayhi salam abikum, millata abikum Ibrahim. So Ibrahim is also, in some sense, a spiritual father, right, to the Muslims. And I say all of this to begin in that Dhul Hijjah is an exploration of our relationship with Ibrahim alayhi salam, right? All over again. So sometimes I know people, they, when the Eid al-Adha khutbah comes and they say, oh, here we go again. talking about, the highlights of Ibrahim alayhi salam. And I really wish that the community would not feel that way. I don't think you guys feel that way, but I've heard that sentiment several times. And I will tell you that Ibrahim alayhi salam, on a personal level, when I was maybe 20 years old, I gave a khutbah. No, that was some time ago. My 7-year-old sitting here. So. I remember I gave a khutbah on Ibrahim alayhi salam. And this is, to this day, the greatest compliment I ever received. The greatest compliment I ever received, and I know you guys are very nice people, but to this day, nobody beat this compliment. He said, in your khutbah, it sounds like when you talk about Ibrahim alayhi salam, it sounds like you're talking about your best friend. That's to this day. If anyone said, what's the greatest compliment anyone ever give you, it was this one. Because if we can establish friendship, right, with the friends of Allah, whom Ibrahim is Khalilullah, we can establish a sense of friendship. This is what Allah wants from us. And so we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during, these blessed days of Dhul Qa'dah and Dhul Hijjah. And remember that Ramadan, right? Ramadan, you have Shawwal, Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hijjah. Nowadays we have planes. But before planes, if you wanted to go for Hajj, that journey basically starts from Ramadan. Shawwal, Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hijjah. Right? So Ramadan really is the time where people start, at least mentally and physically, their journey to Hajj historically. And for all of us, let us think about that, inshaAllah ta'ala, during these blessed days. But now I would like to turn it to Sheikh Bakeer. And like I said, we might be going on some tangents, but inshallah we're kind of in the right mindset for tonight.
Jazakallah khair. I actually have some reflections about your beautiful thoughts and reminders. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you, Sheikh. And make us among those who listen to the speech so they follow the best of it. Ameen. I love Prophet Ibrahim. I love Prophet Ibrahim. I love him. He's the patriarch. He's the father of all prophets. He's the one that all people of different faith traditions look up to. He is the most single respected man in humanity. Like I said yesterday, Prophet ﷺ himself is the response of his dua. رَبَّنَا وَابْعَثْ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا مِّنْهُمْ. Ya Allah, send among them a messenger from them. And subhanAllah, our prayer is, like I said, a response of his dua as well. And the highest reward that Prophet Ibrahim is getting is that we mention his name on every single prayer until the day of judgment. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidun Majid. What an honor. Because he said it, Ya Allah, make my dhurriya, make my offspring among those who establish the prayer. And that's the reward that he's getting, mashallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us among those who will follow the legacy of our father Ibrahim alayhi salam. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. One of the beautiful things about the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, as he was teaching his grandsons, Al-Hasan and Al-Hussein, a very special dua, he told them to protect yourself from evil. Say, أعوذ بكلمات الله التامة من كل عين لامة ومن كل شيطان وهامة. Say, I seek refuge to Allah from the evil eye and from the shaitan, the devil, and the beasts. And then he told them, my father Ibrahim is the one who taught me this dua, so I'm teaching it to you. So like this is connection. This is a connection between Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam and Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Prophet Muhammad himself was asked one time, one of the Sahaba told him, Ya khayra khalqillah, O the best of mankind. And the Prophet ﷺ, out of humbleness, he responded and said, I'm not the best of mankind, the best of my kind is my father Ibrahim alayhi salam. Out of humbleness, just like looking up to Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. Very unique prophet, very unique prophet. SubhanAllah, in all of his du'as, Sheikh, in Surah Al-Baqarah and in Surah Ibrahim, you'll find Prophet Ibrahim's du'as. All of his du'as always have to mention وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِي وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِي وَمِن ذُرِّيَّتِي, meaning that he is always concerned about us. He's always making dua for his offspring, for us, to establish the prayers, to actually perform Hajj. We are doing Hajj as a response of his dua. Is to actually have a prophet that guides us, always thinking about us. So I have that respect to Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. Inna Ibrahima kana ummah. And that's very unique, because there is a man or a woman that equals a man or a woman in a value. And there is a man that equals 10 men in value. And there is a woman that equals 10 women in value. And Ibrahim alayhi salam equals an entire ummah in value. Inna Ibrahima kana ummah, by himself, in a nation by himself. His strength, his faith equals a nation of faith and a nation of strength. We're talking about a great man here. It gives me goosebumps just talking about Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. And subhanAllah, that takes us to just definitely learn about one of the most beautiful du'as of other Prophet Musa alayhi salam. But before I go to this, first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah, the month of Dhul Hijjah, ya shabab, is unlike any other months. Because Imam Hassan al-Basri, he says something beautiful. He said, all of the 5 pillars of Islam are fulfilled in the month of Dhul Hijjah, unlike any other month. Meaning what? In the month of Dhul Hijjah, we perform Hajj. We cannot perform Hajj any other month. We fast, especially Yawm Arafah, and the highest reward of Yawm Arafah. It actually wipes out all of your sins for the previous year and the next year. That's something that you don't want to miss. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us among those who will observe this day, Ya Rabbil Alameen. And make us among those who will be emancipated from hellfire in this day, Ya Rabbil Alameen. And also, it's a month of zakat, month of sadaqah. We actually sacrifice animal to Allah Azza wa Jal in this month. So it's month of zakat. And also a month of prayer. And the dua of the prayer that happened actually in this month. And then obviously we do all of this because of our faith. Because La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. So all of the 5 pillars are actually combined in this blessed month of the Hijjah. I think the last point here, and I always say a last point, I never, follow Sheikh. My ADHD sometimes kicks in. But subhanAllah, the last point, hopefully inshallah, in this regard, the month of the Hijjah is where Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam was standing after a dream that he had. He was asked from Allah to slaughter his own son, which is something that is actually no one can handle. And because he is a prophet, Allah was actually giving him this as a test. فَلَمَّا بَلَغَ مَعَهُ السَّعْيَ قَالَ يَا بُنَيَّ إِنِّي أَرَى فِي الْمَنَامِ أَنِّي أَذْبَحُكَ فَانظُرْ مَاذَا تَرَى قَالَ يَا أَبَتِ افْعَلْ مَا تُؤْمَرُ ستجدني إن شاء الله من الصابرين. Conversation that happened between Prophet Ibrahim after seeing this dream, had this conversation with his son Ismail, and he told him, "Oh my son, right? Oh my son, I had a dream that I will sacrifice you for Allah. What do you think?" And then Prophet Ismail alayhi salam has responded to this, and he said, "Ya abati fa'al ma tu'mar." Do what Allah has commanded you to do. We need to submit to Allah's command. We need, both of us, we need to submit to Allah's command. This is very powerful, by the way, because Allah Azza wa Jal is not asking us to submit to Him by slaughtering our children. But He has given us some commands. And He asked us to actually submit to these commands. And so, subhanAllah, Imam Abu al-Ala al-Mawdudi said something very powerful. He said, all of humans are Muslims. So I was wondering, what does he mean by this? He said, even the non-believers are Muslims. And then it was just like a strange statement to say. And then he explained it beautifully. He said, because eventually even the non-believers, all of their bodies submit to Allah Azza wa Jal. Their kidneys submit to Allah, so their kidneys are Muslim. Islam means to submit. And their eyes submit to Allah, their eyesight submits to Allah, their flesh submits to Allah, their hearts submit to Allah. If Allah wills for the heart to stop, it will submit to Allah. So their entire body except their intellect submits to Allah, meaning that they're Muslims, and Allah give all of us the ability to choose, the choice, and that's because of the intellect. This is the test that we had. But all of our bodies, regardless we want it or not, we like it or not, they're submitting to Allah Azza wa Jalla. That's why, my dear brothers and sisters, when somebody says, well, I asked this multiple times, why do you wear hijab? For instance, I asked this question. And I get beautiful answers actually. It's out of modesty. Hijab actually makes me, keep my identity. All of these great answers. Great answers. But not the right one. Not the first one. Not the first answer. What is the right answer here? Because Allah has asked me to do so, and I'm submitting to Allah's command. Period. Regardless of I like it or not, I actually see a wisdom behind it or not. Allah's command is Allah's command. And we submit to Him. Because Prophet Ibrahim probably did not understand the wisdom behind slaughtering his own son. Right? Like, what wisdom behind this? But he didn't even get to question. If Allah has asked me to submit to Him, I will submit. That does not mean that we neglect our intellect and we don't get to ask the reasoning behind certain things. No, our deen is built on intellect. أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ أَفَلَا يَعْقِلُونَ. Don't they, comprehend? Don't they ponder? Don't they ask? Right? We are an ummah of intellect. But at the same time, ultimately, sometimes we don't know certain wisdom behind certain things. Ultimately, we submit to Allah, and that's the focal meaning of Islam. Islam means submission. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us among those who will always submit to Allah's commands, Ya Rabbal Alameen. طيب. Switching gears here, going to a different prophet, a different dua. I got these requests. I really wanted to start off with the dua of Prophet Musa, but Sheikh inspired me to just give some reflections about month al-Hijjah and Prophet Ibrahim. May Allah reward you, Sheikh. Prophet Musa had a beautiful dua that actually was the turning point of his life. His life before this dua is different than his life after. So just a little background about Prophet Musa alayhi salam. He was born in the beautiful land of Egypt. I'm just kidding, because I'm just Egyptian. I have to hype out my people sometimes. Anyhow, he was born in Egypt, and this year was a unique year. Why? Because Pharaoh decided to actually slaughter all of the boys that they were born in this year, because he had this dream that eventually one of the boys that will be born this year will take over his kingdom. So he decided to do something very cruel, and that is basically sending his soldiers out there to end all of the boys that they were born in this year. Musa got so terrified. So she said, I want to protect my son. What should I do? And Allah has revealed to her a wahy. وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَى أُمِّ مُوسَى أَنْ أَرْضِعِيهِ فَإِذَا خِفْتِ عَلَيْهِ فَأَلْقِيهِ فِي الْيَمِّ وَلَا تَخَافِي وَلَا تَحْزَنِي. Now he told the mother of Musa, go and put your son Musa, baby Musa, in a box and place that box in the Nile River. Okay? Now, Prophet Musa alayhi salam ended up being where? Around the palace of Fir'aun. Allah has decreed for Prophet Musa to reach the palace of Fir'aun. He was looking for all the boys that were born in this year, and he was born in this year, and it happened that Prophet Musa actually reached to him first. Allah's command. Now Prophet Musa grew up as a king, as a part of the royal family. So he was eating like a king, he was drinking like a king, he was sleeping like a king, he was treated like a king, getting, the best health, care as a king. He's getting the best, very special education like a king. He's a king, part of the royal family. And all of a sudden, something happened that actually flipped his life completely. And that when he was at some point, did not control his emotions to the point that he actually murdered that son of Israelites, one of the sons of Israelites. He couldn't just control his emotions, so he actually made that big mistake. And as a result, Prophet Musa's life flipped. Now he had to escape from Egypt. Because if the people of Fir'aun catch him, he will be gone. So he decided to escape. And all of his life has changed from somebody who is now treated as a king to somebody who is jobless, has no job, and he's also homeless, no home. And on top of all of this, he's actually wanted, right? So if they will catch him, they will kill him. And Prophet Musa alayhi salam was actually going through the desert. He didn't even know where to go, but he felt that I need to change my environment. I've made a big mistake, and in order for me to grow out of this mistake, I will change my entire environment, the entire people that I deal with. There's something has to be wrong here that I need to quit. So he actually quit all of the environment, all of the people, all of the place, and he escaped to go very far. He ended up being where? In anybody? Madian. That's right. He ended up being in Madian. So this is by itself until today is actually very powerful. Because when we make mistakes, number one thing that we do, we need to learn from our mistakes. And the first thing to learn about a mistake that we make is that what caused us to make that mistake. He thought that what caused him to make this mistake is the environment, is the way that he was raised. So he actually decided to quit and to leave and to start fresh, to start a new life. And that's the second point. When we make mistakes, sometimes we beat up ourselves. Sometimes we go harsh on ourselves. And in Islam, there is always second chance. There is always a way that you can actually get back on your feet and get back to Allah. Rahmati wasi'at kulla shay. My mercy encompasses everything. La taqnatu min rahmatillah. Don't deprive yourself from the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal. Beautiful concept in Islam. There's always a second chance. You keep going. You fall and you get up and you keep going. This is exactly what Prophet Musa alayhi salam did. So he actually ended up being where? In Madian. Under a tree. It was extremely hot. And he was under the shade of this tree. And then, so think about Prophet Musa's life as a roller coaster. He was like a pharaoh, astaghfirullah, he was a part of the royal family, treated, in a manner that everybody of us will dream to be treated. And then he went all the way down, homeless, jobless, afraid, scared, has no clothes, has nothing, no security. He's afraid of his life. He's afraid to be, caught. All what you're thinking about. And when he was in the bottom, he made that dua that actually got him back up. What was the dua? He said, at this moment, Rabbi, inni lima anzalta ilayya min khayrin faqir. What is the meaning of this dua? Basically, he's saying, Ya Allah, Well, with all the blessings that you have bestowed upon me, with all the blessings that I know and the blessings that I don't even know, and the khair, the goodness that you have showed me, I am still in need of you. I need more. And you may wonder, like, wait a second, what goodness is Prophet Musa talking about? I mean, like, jobless and homeless and scared, and where are these blessings? Like, what kind of blessings he's talking about? Abu Sufyan al-Thawri, he says something very powerful. He said, Prophet Musa acknowledged some blessings even at that position. He said maybe to himself, the fact that Allah has saved me from the people of Pharaoh is a blessing. The fact that I reached to Madian alive is a blessing. The fact that even I'm sitting under this shade that's protecting me from the sun is in itself a blessing. By the way, this is a mindset, my dear brothers and sisters. Sometimes we're just like drown into these beautiful, amazing, tremendous blessings, and we're not even acknowledging it. We're not seeing it. And look at the other side. He is finding blessings in his difficult time. That's we call this psychology of abundance versus psychology of deprivation. Psychology of deprivation is like basically you just say, oh, everybody else got it much better than me. Or like, you know, this man has much better kids than me. Or why I don't have that kind of a house that I see with my peer. I was like, why my financial state is not the same like Fulan, right? You're always, and then I must be a loser. I must be like stupid. Like you beat up yourself. That's the psychology of what? Deprivation. But the Prophet ﷺ, Prophet Musa ﷺ here is in this situation, changing flipping the script. Yes, I'm going through difficult time, and yet I'm acknowledging Allah's blessings upon me. And subhanAllah, after this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has opened all the doors in front of Prophet Musa alayhi salam. Now he met this amazing family. Now he got a house, got a shelter. Now, you see, like a roller coaster. Up and down and then up, back up again. He actually got to marry. He got a house and he got a job. And more importantly, he got what? The Risala. Now he's actually a prophet. He got the honor to even speak to Allah directly. وَمَا تِلْكَ بِيَمِينِكَ يَا مُوسَى قَالَ هِيَ عَصَايِ أَتَوَكَّأُ عَلَيْهَا وَأَهُشُّ بِهَا عَلَى غَنَمِي وَلِيَ فِيهَا مَآرِبُ أُخْرَى قَالَ أَلْقِهَا يَا مُوسَى فَأَلْقَاهَا فَإِذَا هِيَ حَيَّةٌ تَسْعَى. That's a very unique moment at the time of Prophet Musa, when he was actually in the desert, finding his way back, because he was asked from Allah to head back to Egypt. And now another lesson of submission. Remember Prophet Ibrahim? Here is another lesson. He could have said, like, I got everything now, like I'm chilling. You know, I have my job, I have my house, I'm married, like I have everything. Why would I go back to these people again? Like, these people want to kill me, bro. Like, why do I go back? No. He submitted to Allah's command. Go to Egypt, he will go to Egypt. That's it. No questions. He will go. And as he was going through the desert, he got the honor, a reward from Allah to speak to him directly. And subhanAllah, this is a beautiful conversation because Allah told him, اخلع عليك إنك بالوادي المقدس طوى. Take off your shoes. Take off your shoes because this is a sacred place. You will. أنا اخترتك فاستمع لما يوحى. He said, I have chose you. I have selected you, O Musa. Listen to my commands. إني أنا ربك. I am your Lord. You are my servant. And then he gave him some commands, and then, subhanAllah, it's so beautiful that Prophet Musa did not want the conversation to end. So when he told him, مَا تِلْكَ بِيَمِينِكَ يَا Musa, it's like this is just an intimate conversation here, right? He's asking Musa alayhi salam, what do you have in your hand? And Prophet Musa responded, Hiya asaya, it's my stick. But then, like, if you think about it, there is nothing really else to be said here. But Prophet Musa wanted to prolong the conversation. He wanted to make the conversation even longer. He said, Ahushu biha hiya asaya atawakkau alayha. I use it to actually, like, be able to walk. Wa ahushu biha ala ghanami. And also, like, I use it for multiple purposes. Like, sometimes I use it for my flock. وَلِيَ فِيهَا مَآرِبُ أُخْرَى. And also I have it for other reasons. You see, like, he loved that conversation, Prophet Musa alayhi salam. قَالَ أَلْقِهَا يَا Musa. Just like, throw it. فَأَلْقَاهَا فَإِذَا هِيَ حَيَّةٌ تَسْعَى. And then Allah has showed him a miracle, that this stick can actually be converted to a big snake. فَأَلْقَاهَا فَإِذَا هِيَ حَيَّةٌ تَسْعَى قَالَ خُذْهَا وَلَا تَخَفْ سَنُعِيدُهَا سِيرَتَهَا الْأُولَى. And then he said, just take it back, it will be a stick. Now go to Egypt and go and have a conversation with Pharaoh. And Prophet Musa, he's telling Allah, Ya Allah, even my speech is not the best. I don't know if I'm going to be able to actually have a conversation with him. Especially that even I've killed somebody there. It's a tough situation. Then Allah has made it easy on Musa alayhi salam, and he told him, you know what, just take your brother with you, brother Harun with you. He can help you out. Now, I want you to look at the transformation in the character of Prophet Musa alayhi salam. From somebody who was, immature as a kid, and he was unable to control his emotions at some point, and he made that big mistake until Allah has actually showed him a different path, and he grew out of this. He actually grew from the experience itself. Sometimes when we go through difficult time, is actually for our own growth. It's for our own growth. We grow. Sometimes we see it as a blessing, by the way. Eventually, you're growing. You're benefiting. And you see the transformation in his personality now. As he was going to Pharaoh. Imagine with me this. Pharaoh is sitting on his throne. And Musa is walking to him. And Musa is a very bad, situation. I mean, he has wronged one of Pharaoh's people. And he's coming back, and Allah told him, go give da'wah to Pharaoh. And Pharaoh is the last one that you want to speak to him for about Islam or about da'wah. Wrong guy. Right? Now Prophet Musa alayhi salam started the conversation with Pharaoh. And then Pharaoh was actually very harsh. He attacked Musa alayhi salam. And he wanted to gaslight Musa alayhi salam, making him feel bad for something that is not even, of a value in his moment. Now I'm coming to you and I'm giving you da'wah, I'm talking to you about Allah. And what Pharaoh is doing here is actually talking to Musa alayhi salam about his mistake when he killed the man. And Musa did not go to that trap. He brought it back to the main conversation. Beautiful conversation I want you to look at the Quran. Beautiful conversation between Pharaoh and Musa alayhi salam. And subhanAllah, Allah has opened the hearts of the people around Pharaoh because of Musa alayhi salam's speech. Allah has wisdom behind sending Musa alayhi salam there. Even though Pharaoh did not, did not really listen to the advice of Prophet Musa alayhi salam, but the boys, the sons of Israelites actually listened to Musa alayhi salam's advice and they converted to Islam. Sometimes Allah is using you for a cause that you're not aware of. Maybe it looks like you are putting an effort to accomplish certain thing, and then subhanAllah, Allah shows you a different path and this path is beautiful, full of barakas and blessings for you. You never know. But the bottom line is submitting to Allah's commands. That's what Prophet Musa alayhi salam. Anyhow, fast forward a little bit because I want to end it in 3-4 minutes inshallah ta'ala. Fast forward a little bit. The last scene in the life of Pharaoh. The last scene. Are you ready to listen to the last scene of Pharaoh and Prophet Musa alayhi salam? Let's see what happened. And again, look at the transformation in the character of Prophet Musa. It's a huge transformation. Prophet Musa was escaping from Pharaoh and his army with a group of people that they actually have no arms, they're not equipped for wars, nothing like that. And they were escaping with Prophet Musa until they got into the Red Sea, and now the sea is right in front of Prophet Musa along with this small group of people. And behind them is Pharaoh and his soldiers. Very well-equipped army. Who freaked out at this point? Not Musa alayhi salam. Who freaked out are the people, the small group of people that they're actually with the Prophet. Prophet Musa alayhi salam. They told him, Inna lamudrakun. They got us, that's it. There is no way we can actually make it. They're coming for us, they're gonna kill us. What should we do? Putting so much pressure on Prophet Musa alayhi salam at this moment. And Prophet Musa, old Musa, young Musa would not react the same. But Musa Nabi is different. Musa alayhi salam has said to his people, Kalla, that would never happen. Inna ma'iya rabbi sayahdeen. Allah's with me and Allah will show me a way out. Look at this yaqeen, this certainty. Look at this tranquility that Prophet Musa alayhi salam had. If he did not go through all of these harsh stages of his life, he wouldn't be that man who had that beautiful character and a character of a believer, someone who has so much faith in his heart, somebody who is mature, somebody who has this stability of thinking thoughtfully that Allah would not actually let me die, that Allah actually is going to save me. That certainty, this confidence that he had is something that he has developed through the experience that he went through. So never ever think when you are in a difficult time that there is actually no benefit from it. Actually there is. وَعَسَىٰ أَن تَكْرَهُ شَيْئًا وَهُوَ خَيْرٌ لَكُمْ. Maybe something that you see right in front of you, something that you hate, you dislike. But indeed, it is good for your own growth and for you and for your family. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us among those who will observe those hikam from our prophets alayhi salam. By the way, my dear brothers and sisters, the stories of the prophets are not in the Quran for entertainment. The stories of the prophets are reminders for the believers, as Allah said in the Quran. كَذَلِكَ نَقُصُّ عَلَيْكَ مِنْ أَنْبَاءِ الرُّسُلِ مَا نُثَبِّتُ بِهِ فُؤَادَكَ. He was telling the Prophet ﷺ, Allah was talking to the Prophet because he was going through also a difficult time. And Allah was telling the Prophet, we have revealed to you all of these stories, not for entertainment, لِنُثَبِّتْ بِهِ فُؤَادَكَ, to make your heart firm on your deen. Even though you're going through a difficult time, never give hope. Always remember that Allah is the creator and Allah is in control. And we see the transformation that even happened in the life and in the character of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, when he actually was standing on the grave of his own son Ibrahim. It was a very difficult moment. And Muhammad ﷺ, our Habib, our Prophet, he said, Inna al-ayna la tadma. Wallahi, my eyes are about to tear. وإن القلب لا يخشى, and my heart is in pain. وإنا على فراقك يا إبراهيم لمحزونون. Wallahi, Ya Ibrahim, O Ibrahim, my son, we are very sad that you're leaving us. ولا نقول إلا ما يرضي ربنا إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. He said, I would never say something that displeases Allah Azza wa Jal, because we belong to Allah and we shall return to go back to Allah Azza wa Jal eventually. This is the character, even if he's going through the most difficult moment of his life, he is still firm on his deen. These experiences grow you, make you actually more mature and more understanding of Allah Azza wa Jal, and more understanding of Allah's hikam. So I pray that Allah Azza wa Jal make us among those who will observe the reminders and the wisdom of our prophets, of our anbiya. And we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us among those who will always reflect on the stories of the prophets in the Quran. Ya Rabb al-Alameen. Allahumma taqabbal minna innaka anta as-sami'u al-alim. وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. Ya Allah, make our lives, give us ease in our lives in this life and in the next. Ya Rabb al-Alameen. And if you give us hardship, Ya Allah, gives us the strength to go through it. Ya Rabb al-Alameen. Make us grow out of these hardships. Ya Akram al-Akrameen. Ya Allah, protect our children. Ya Rabb al-Alameen. Ya Allah, make our children the coolest of our eyes. Ya Rabb al-Alameen. Ya Allah, make us among those who will follow the legacy of our Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. Ya Rabb al-Alameen. Ya Allah, make us among those who will always submit to Allah's commands. Ya Akram al-Akrameen. Ya Allah, make us among those who will always observe these gems and these reminders from the lives of the prophets. Ya Akram al-Akrameen. Allahumma salli wa sallim wa an'im wa barik على عبدك وحبيبك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. جزاكم الله خيرا.
Takbir. 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 So inshallah ta'ala we have a few minutes, we have about half an hour until Isha, so maybe we do 10 minutes of questions?
Sure, 10 minutes.
So inshallah, if anyone have any questions, we can inshallah talk about those. So questions are always twofold. It's a double-edged sword. If there's too many questions, then that's a problem, right? That means you didn't give enough answers.
Yes.
But if there's no questions, then that means you didn't confuse them enough.
That's a good sign.
So, yeah, go ahead, brother.
I don't want to monopolize the question. Something is happening when we're doing Zabiha in the farm.
Yeah.
Some animal activists are coming with a flag and saying, you guys should not do that. They look like they're nice people. What should we say? Like we are torturing the animals, we should be eating vegetables. What's like the right answer?
Well, this is its own 2-hour lecture. I did give a khutbah on this last year, actually. Maybe we'll have to go into the archives. But Sheikh, if you'd like to share any wisdom.
No, I think if it depends really to the situation, their attitude as well. Ultimately, you cannot give an advice for somebody who's not seeking it, right? That's 101, the art of giving nasiha. The art of giving nasiha is that you only give an advice to somebody who's truly coming to seek this advice. Coming from a place of humbleness, coming from a place of learning. Otherwise, it will be a debate, and in the debate, nobody wins, right? You see these, these debates and people shouting at each other, street fight. There's absolutely no benefit from it. So if we were to be in a position where we're exchanging ideas and we're learning from each other, then absolutely, I will give him the hikmah and the wisdom behind this, the significance of actually slaughtering and sacrificing an animal in this day, and we'll have a long conversation with him. But otherwise, this kind of incidents, I will be quiet. I will be, I will try to be wise, not to cause more fitna, and I will try to avoid to disengage from any, disagreements and kind of fights. I will disengage. I will just mind my business. Unless somebody was truly seeking truth, then I wouldn't even be bothered by this.
Yeah. MashaAllah. Yeah, this is a very solid answer. And it's a good question, honestly, for all of us to think about. But I think in general, we always have to look at the environment that creates these types of activists. And you could say that Muslims in general are not people who consume recklessly, right? Nor are we people who have low standards. Right? So, but if you look at the meat industry today, the meat industry today is responsible for a number of oppressions. And so I think that's where you start. You have to find the common ground in terms of, hey, Muslims in some sense are not against you. We also have our critique of really one of the most oppressive meat industries in human history. Right? For all of human history, we never treated animals like this, right? So I think we also have to some extent, show how our position is different from kind of mainstream capitalistic tendencies. If you're able to find common ground from there, then it's a matter of what are we talking about? Because I've spoken to a number of vegans, and I got to a point where we had such a conversation where they conceded that if you were to have a farm where you treat your animals very well, but for instance, as the cow gets older, or if you were to kill them and eat them, they would see no issue with that. So I actually got a vegan to admit that. She conceded that and she had no problem in saying that. But her problem is obviously mass consumerism and abuse of the animals and, putting them in cages and doing these types of things. And so, yeah, I think that, mashallah, it's a good answer, especially if someone is being aggressive and hostile. But at the same time, it's our responsibility as Muslims to really distinguish ourselves, because Muslims are people capable of great nuance. This word nuance. We have things which we consider in our deen, al-ma'lum min ad-din bid-darura, that which is fixed, that which is black and white, our unwavering principles. But outside of that, even if a Muslim were to say, I don't want to eat meat, as long as they don't command you to not eat meat, technically, it's halal for them to say, I do not want to do that. That's within their right. But once you get to the point where you say, eating meat or slaughtering animals is unethical, right? Then that's obviously the line. But if I were today to say I don't want to eat meat, if I were to go on a diet and do that, there's nothing wrong with that. So we have to distinguish. And of course, we do know from the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that they definitely did not eat meat in the frequency we did today. And it was actually staggering. The seniors program on Thursday, I think there was no meat dish. There was like chickpeas and rice and salad, and I stood there and I was like, where's the meat, man? But it's good. At the end of the day, I was very happy to see that, we're able to eat a meal without meat every once in a while. So I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us. And I want to actually talk more about this, because I did give a khutbah on this last year. But I'll stop here so we can take some more questions, inshallah. Was that, are you okay? Oh, you.
Her leg is stuck. Her foot is stuck.
I got it.
We're good. Uh-oh, we get...
No, she's fine. She's fine. She's fine. Are you okay? No.
Can we put you with this?
It's okay. It's fine.
Try to put
It's good you learned your lesson.
Somebody did that on the playground the other day, and their arm got stuck. We were about to cut open the...
Okay, yes, sister, Assalamu alaikum.
Talking about the adversity, like the difficulty that the prophets and Moses have met. But he's blessed. He's like a prophet. So he's for sure is going to be taken care of. He knows like he would be taken care of by Allah. But us ordinary people like us, like we could go through very much, a lot of adversities. But how would we know that we can overcome it? Because we may not be blessed by Allah like the prophets. So that's why some people have bipolar, some people have depression, some people kill themselves. How do we overcome this? Like I know it's very hopeful that to think Allah could, like it's the adversity can train us, can make us become stronger. If it doesn't kill us, can make us stronger. But this is just a hope. But this is like just the people saying this. But how do we really like comfort us when we meet a lot of difficulties in life?
Yeah, mashallah, I think you made a great point, which is that we should not be delusional, right? That there are people who fail the tests that Allah gives them. Not everyone passes these tests. But here's the distinguishing feature. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in a hadith Qudsi, which means it's a hadith where Allah is the speaker. And Allah says, أَنَا عِنْدَ ظَنْ عَبْدِي بِي. He said, I am what my servant thinks of me. And so this should cause a shift in our mind. That Allah is what I think of Him. And so, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, when the people of God consciousness are asked, إِذَا قِيلَ لِلَّذِينَ اتَّقَوْا مَاذَا أَنزَلَ رَبُّكُمْ. When the people of God consciousness are asked, what has your Lord sent down? قَالُوا خَيْرًا. They say He has sent down goodness. And so there is an idea that what is our deen in the first place? What is it? If we were to reduce deen down to one thing or one word, it would be having a good opinion of Allah. If you have a good opinion of Allah, you have everything. Truly, that's where everything stems from. All goodness stems from having a good opinion of Allah. And so, when someone, usually we would say, when someone were to fail a test, right, it's not that God left them, right? Because God says, سَنُرِيهِمْ آيَاتِنَا فِي الْآفَاقِ وَفِي أَنفُسِهِمْ. He said, we will show them our signs in nature, in the horizons, and within themselves, right? So Allah doesn't abandon people. People abandon Allah. This is a very important distinction, right? We leave Allah, right? And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this idea that when He gives the human being goodness, they turn away from Him and they give all the credit to themselves, right? And then when they're touched with hardship, right, then they turn their backs on Allah, right? And there's all different types of people in the Quran that Allah talks about, these different archetypes. And that's why it's important to read the Quran so you can learn from the lessons of what people have done. and what their relationships have been. And so some people, they don't, when things are good, they don't turn to Allah. But when things get bad, they do turn to Allah. Some people, right, they do the opposite. Right? So there's all different types of people, and Allah will test people to bring them to the truth. And one of the ways I like to explain this is, it's like you're sitting in your room and the sunlight is coming through the window. Allah sends you that light, and you say, I'm not interested in the light, you shut the window. Allah says, okay, no problem, I'll send the light again. And you shut the window. He sends the light again, you shut the window. At what point though, when you shut that window, does Allah say, I'm not going to send the light anymore? Right? In the Quran, Allah calls this khatmul qulub. Right? That is the point. There is a point where the heart becomes sealed. Right? And that's something that none of us know, which is why when Allah gives us an opportunity to turn to Him, we should not take it for granted. Because we don't know if we let it go, if it will come back. We don't have that certainty. But the one who believes in Allah and submits to Allah and develops, like Musa alayhi salam, a high level of certainty. They've been through so many things with Allah. So they have, where did they develop that certainty from? Is because every single time they were in a tight space, Allah got them out of it. And so they have no reason to doubt Allah. And Allah says this in Surah Ibrahim alayhi salam, where the believers say, وَمَا لَنَا أَلَّا نَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. He said, what reason do we have to not trust Allah? وَقَدْ هَدَانَا سُبُلَنَا. Right? He said, and because we have no reason not to trust Allah, because He's the one who got us this far in the first place. How is it that we haven't drowned from the adversities we've already faced? How is it that we've received breath and food and drink and shelter for 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? What reason do we have to not trust Allah? He's already gotten us so far, right? And so, this is another thing where we could talk about this for hours, but I hope this suffices, and I hope the Sheikh, maybe if you'd like to add or not add.
Sure, inshallah. I will just add something very quick to the Sheikh's answer. Everyone, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created everyone with a unique journey that only suits him or her. Everybody has a different journey. And every one of us, Allah has given us different capabilities, different abilities. And Allah will ultimately judge us according to our abilities. And how did we navigate life according to those abilities that Allah has given us. If you think about it from this lifer's perspective, things might look unfair. Okay? People got it very difficult. People got it very easy. But we don't take out the hereafter out of the equation. The hereafter, Yawm al-Qiyamah, the day of resurrection, the permanent paradise and the permanent hellfire are in the equation. Meaning what? Meaning if Allah is giving us a test according to our abilities, and we have passed that test, that means even though we went through temporary pain, but ultimately there is a permanent pleasure of Allah. So like when we see somebody who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not give him the abilities to go through a certain test, and he failed, and I believe this is the type of Allah Azza wa Jal would not hold these people accountable for something that is beyond their capacity, and therefore they will end up in Jannah in permanent joy and happiness. And if you think about this is much greater than I have it good here and I fail my test and ultimately I go to hellfire. You see what I'm saying? So Islam comes and tells you that if you would not have the ability to pass the test, Allah will not hold you accountable for it, and ultimately you are in Jannah. You see that people that with disabilities and people with special needs, right? Allah Azza wa Jal are actually promising them permanent joy and happiness in paradise, in Jannah. That's a promise of Allah. If you take Islam out of the equation and the hereafter out of the equation, it will be so unfair. Why? Because you would say, well, how come he or she is going through this painful journey with all of these disabilities and then eventually will die and no compensation for all of what they saw in their lives? How that is fair? I will challenge this statement at this point. But Islam is the religion of mercy, and Allah Himself is the most merciful. And He knows that even though you're going through temporary pain, if you add this, and I said this yesterday in math, if you add any value to a permanent value, it will equal what? Permanent. And if you add a temporary pain to a permanent joy and happiness, it will equal what? Permanent joy and happiness. So ultimately they're winning. And then if you flip the script and you say temporary joy and happiness here, and you failed the test, and Allah has given you the abilities to pass the test, and you intentionally failed, right? If you add it to permanent pain, it will equal what? Permanent pain. Those soldiers that they're out there killing the babies, right? And they have, Allah has given them the aql, like mind, to think and to actually value humanity, and they chose intentionally not to care about humanity, and they're killing babies. Maybe they feel sort of like temporary joy and like feeling of being victorious now. That's a temporary feeling. But if you add it to permanent pain in the hereafter, it will actually equal what? Permanent pain. This temporary joy and happiness means nothing. This life is very short. It will seem to the people on the hereafter as if it was an hour or like a part of a day on the Day of Judgment. It means nothing. It's temporary life. And Allah is putting us here. And we ask Allah to show us goodness, and we want to have good life. But everybody has different tests. And we're trying to pass this test according to our abilities. And we hope that Allah has mercy on us on the Day of Judgment, and He grants us Jannah, because He is the most merciful. So I hope that makes sense to you, inshallah. Do you have any other follow-up question or anything like this? Yes.
I want to say that I know somebody who tried so
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la
inshallah we'll be closing, but I wanted to, Sheikh Bakeer is going to the ICNA conference, so he's going to be leaving right now, inshallah. So we don't want to hold him anymore, but I'm here for questions. And sister, inshallah, on Sundays we can talk, and Wednesdays, other opportunities, inshallah. But for now, good to see you.
Jazakumullah khair for having me. Barakallah feek. Please keep me in your dua, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So inshallah, but we have 4 minutes. So inshallah, is there any other comments or questions or reflections?
Yes. Changing gears a little bit. Regarding children and the stories of the Prophet.
Yeah.
When and how should we approach the kids? What stories should we tell them first? Should we start with Adam and Eve, or what would you recommend?
Yeah, I think that's very beautiful. It's a great point. Having children go through the Quran, and some of these stories are, very graphic, right? And some of these concepts, I think, are, we can sometimes consider them to be too much for children. At the same time, it's also important for them to kind of have an idea, at least the black and white idea, of the nature of the world. So they're also not too naive in that sense, but we want to protect their innocence at the same time. But I think that starting with the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even if it's something difficult, like for instance, if a child were to interact with the seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they will be exposed to the idea of orphans, right? But that's also an important an important concept for them to have grounding in, the fact that I have parents and there were people who don't have this blessing I have. So I don't think protecting innocence means that they can't be exposed at all, but there are certain components of these stories that they're going to have to learn early. But the early seerah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I would say, is not very graphic at all. And then, for instance, Yunus alayhi salam, also, he's swallowed by a whale, but there's not really a component of violence in his story either, to some extent. I would also say that, wherever even Adam alayhi salam, also there's not really any type of violence, but they will get exposed to the concept of shaitan, the concept of jealousy, the concepts of greed, of love of power, of these types of things, which I think is something for us to reflect on. And each kid is the same, because I grew up, with a little play sword running around the masjid. Like, if you were to see me when I was 5 years old running around the masjid, I had one of those play swords, and I would run around and say that I'm defending the masjid and some of these things. So we don't want to over sanitize life either. I think to some extent. So these are things we talk about. I want to make sure that everyone has time for the for prayers, sunnah prayers if they like. So you have an understanding of your child, but as we talked about in the sisters class, it's the first impression, introducing them to Allah, introducing them to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because if you go through the shama'il, you will see the very gentle side of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and you also see his bravery, and you see his courage, and you see, and this is something that needs to be talked about, is that even the seerah itself is just a history of a lot of the battles. But if you were actually to analyze the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's life, he living as a prophet for 23 years, and if you were to accumulate all of the battles he's in, it's not even a fraction of those 23 years. So how is it that the study of his life is all about battles, but he's barely in battles? If you were to look at, I think someone actually did do the statistics for that. They said that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was at war for a total of 70 days from amongst 23 years. But the seerah is all battles. So this is something that we do have to kind of talk about. Is there an overemphasis from a historical standpoint on the battles? But at the same time, that's generally what we look at in life. And if I were to take a history of your grandmother, you might just have a few of her qualities, then you would have maybe some of the big difficulties they went through in life. So that's just how history is in its nature. And so anyways, inshallah ta'ala, I look forward to continuing on this topic because it's a very important one, inshallah. Thanks for bringing it up. Barakallahu feekum. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of you. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.